All right, Yuri, what do you say? Well, you don't say anything, do you? You just pass me notes. So, every river I see flows opposite the V. That's the main rhyme and flow we remember from isolines, along with that other, when isolines are close, gradients the most. We're going to see topo maps or some other sort of isoline map, and they're definitely going to ask pretty much the same things. So I'll point some things out like this. I'll try to do another video where hopefully it doesn't go into fast mode talk like it did before. Okay. First thing you look for is contour interval. What are they going by? This topo map goes by 50s. They're all going to be different. Sometimes you have to figure out what it goes by. But since they go by 50s, the first thing I like to do before any questions are getting asked, I want to label my lines. So I see the numbers that are labeled here, and I know that they're going by 50s. So if I put my labels on the line, Yuri, stay there. You know, in between 500 and 600 is 550, and I've got that in a few different spots. In between 600 and 700 is 650. And if I start to label some of my lines like that, now you can see it just makes the topo map easier to understand. Okay, you can start to pick numbers off of it a lot easier. So that's your first step. Second step, look to see if there's a scale and make sure that the map is pointing north. Okay, then after that you can start to get into your questions. They usually like to have some different points labeled. They always have some sort of river or creek, and they ask you what direction does it go and how do you know. Okay, so let's look at a few of these. I can do these on the screen like this. This creek is going to flow opposite the V. So if I'm looking at that creek there, Otter Creek is going to flow that way. Otter Creek is flowing towards the west. Canary Creek, what do you think Canary Creek is flowing? Opposite the V. What direction would that be? Towards the northeast. Okay. That creek right there is Starry Creek, opposite the V. Every river you see, so Starry Creek is flowing towards the north. For sure a question. Other things, give an elevation. Elevation of point X. It's in between 550 and 600. That helps a lot if I label my lines. You could pick any number in between there. 560, 562, 570, 590. They are all in between there, so you're good. Sometimes they'll ask about the highest possible. If they ask highest possible, now you got to think a little bit deeper into it. 600, 650, 700. My interval's 50, so I can't be at 750. Highest possible would be 749. You take the highest possible, or to figure out the highest possible, you go to the next isoline and subtract 1. Okay, so all of those are pretty straightforward. We can explain those on the map like this. The only thing that we can't do on the map like this is calculate gradient. Okay, so I can't calculate gradient holding it up. The two things you do to calculate gradient, if you forget the formula, it's in your ESRT, okay, for calculating gradient. Gradient is the change in field value divided by distance. So I might be able to do this just showing you. We'll pick Erie up in a second. The gradient from Z to Y, or from Y to Z, what do you think that would be? Your first step is to get your change in field value. So try to figure out what Z is and what Y is. It's from 600 to 500. So my change in field value is going to be 600 minus 500, and we are in meters. I knew that we were in meters by looking at the interval. So you take your change in elevation, or your change in pressure, your change in temperature, whatever the map measures, and you've got to divide it by your distance. So to divide by your distance, you've got to have a little bit of scrap paper. Still on me. Let's use our sticky note here. Put the sticky note. On your test, you'll have just blank computer paper, and you mark off the two. So now that's going to look like that. I marked off these two. So my change in elevation was 100. To get my distance, I'm not going to be good enough to do that while it's hanging in the air. So I go like that. From 0, it looks like we're about 2.5, right on there. 2.5 kilometers. So we have 600 minus 500 was 100. meters divided by 2.5 kilometers. Hey Siri, what's 100 divided by 2.5?
It's 40.
40. If they don't tell you anything, I'd like you to go to the nearest tenth. Okay, 40.0. But also, meters divided by kilometers, you got to write your unit down. And whatever you do for the math, that's what you use for your units. And every once in a while, they do ask you to put your units in. Sometimes they're already printed for you. So 40 meters per kilometer is how steep that stream is from Y to Z, or from Z to Y. One last thing I just noticed, almost forgot about. If we saw this purple symbol, those are called hatchure marks or hatch marks. That's a depression. So that means rather than this is the top of the hill, instead of there being two peaks to this hill, this is a little bit of a depression. It's like where the ground sunk in. Could have been a sinkhole, could have been anything. I think we covered all that as far as topo map skills. Yuri. Sorry, buddy. Dropped you on the ground. You're okay. He was just crawling around for a little bit there.